And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon today. I am talking with Alana Sparrow. Alana, thank you for spending some time with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you are welcome. It is going to be such a fun conversation because Alana is a personal and corporate brand strategist. She has been doing this for a couple of decades or more, and is very, very good at what she does. And we're talking about how we've heard so much about category of one. I'm a big Dan Kennedy fan, and as Alana and I have been talking, she's like, a category of one is great, but you really need more than that. That's not enough anymore. So we're going to dive into that here in just a minute as we talk about this, Alana. I want to know, first of all, though, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Well, okay, so dying all the way back when I was a kid. No, I'm kidding. I am kidding. But in all seriousness, I got an art scholarship.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
really it starts there. And as a naive, 17-year-old, I was actually barely 16 when I graduated, turned 17 in college. I They said pick a major. I picked graphic design.
Okay.
And I realized, you know what, this isn't for me. I wanted something that was more expressive. So I switched to painting, and then I turned around 20 and I realized I think I need to go back to graphic design and I because I'm probably not going to get a job.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I ended up graduating with a dual degree, and I came out during a recession. I
Mhm.
graduated during a recession in the early 90s, and but I landed in the ad world. It was advertising agencies. That's what they were called. Sometimes it was marketing agencies, but typically it was ad agencies, the ones out there making the creative, buying the ad space and
Yep.
all of that. So that's the career I have been in forever. Growing up in my career at first in design, then creative art direction, and creative direction, and then more later in my career, brand strategy. And then when I launched my agency, we ended up doing both because it became very difficult to do creative when there was no brand strategy in place.
I laugh because it is so, we create books for experts, right? And it's really hard to create a book when there's no real story there. And so that's the first thing we try to do is discover what is the story of our client? What's the uniqueness of our client so we can bring that forth because so many times they need that to just cut through the clutter. And
Yeah,
so I chuckle in a good sort of way there because you're just preaching to the choir. Um,
sure, sure.
talk about so all right, so it's really challenging to create a good brand that's consistent, that is attractive to an audience that bonds you with them. Do you find that to be true for most business owners that are struggling with that?
Well, I mean, there's different levels of business owners that are attempting to do that, right? So you have your very large brands, which will engage agencies that will take them through that process. They
Right.
have a much more sophisticated understanding of it and its place and role in its business. But even inside of that, I've worked with Fortune 500s that have had leadership that truly did not understand brands' role in their
Mm,
larger business ecosystem.
yeah.
And I'm of the philosophy that your entire business should flow through brand. It is the lens through which all business activity
Yeah.
should be viewed through. So in a circle, not in marketing, right?
Yes.
That's what we typically think of as brand lives in marketing. No, brand lives everywhere.
Yes.
Lots of functionality happens in marketing, but no. And so I think the where people struggle is just not understanding brand's role and then the complexities and depth of it
Mm-hmm.
because they understand they think brand means the visual, what you can see, the colors, the
Yeah.
fonts, but that's so external. But it's also all the other stuff that's underneath that's born out of the foundational piece of your values, your mission, your vision, which are inform the brand, right? They're the
Yes.
foundation. And without those, people really they will struggle. They tend to just kind of copy and kind of look to other brands for what they think. they're supposed to be doing. So
Yes.
a lot of my work, not a lot, but a part of my work is educating.
Yeah.
It's educating the marketplace, of brand's role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brand's cool. It's important. It's valuable. I was talking with a prospect earlier today, actually, and they said, well, I'm just getting started in my business. And so I'm just looking at what everybody else is doing and I'm doing that. I went, wow. So sorry to hear that.
Well, I'm hoping that they have the same goals as that company because
Yeah, exactly. But when you talked about brand, and we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but we are a Mac family and a Mac company, and Apple has done a great job of through and through. They have a unique brand, but it's distinct in everything they do. And I think that's what you're trying to say is, I love looking at Apple and how they do things and going, I can learn a lot from that, and I'm not $1 trillion company, but I don't have to be because the principles remain the same, right?
yeah, the principles are the same regardless of what the revenue is or
Right.
the size or scale of the company. The principles are absolutely the same. And I think that where what Apple's done so beautifully is that it's rooted in Steve Jobs' values, his vision, his mission,
Yeah.
and then aligning and bringing in the people who carried that on and aligned with it. They've done very good with that.
Yes.
That's where a lot of companies kind of fall apart is they put this sort of fiction
Yes.
together because in many ways a brand is fiction.
Yeah.
It's not a person. We're giving it identity, we're giving it a backstory, we're giving it voice, we're giving it the archetypes and personality. We're giving it a look and feel and how it shows up in the world and giving it words to say, but it's not it's made up.
Yeah.
It's in many ways it's just made up. And if you're people underneath it that are meant to bring it to life and
Yeah.
give it its expression, its full expression, you'll struggle with it. But Apple's done a decent job of living up to that, living up to the
Yeah.
brand promises, living up to, everywhere it shows up, it's consistent, it's
Yeah.
not changing,
It's right in the delivery. It's I love how you said it's story, it's fiction because you are telling a story. And hopefully, when you deliver your service or your product, there's a similar story. There's a connection there, right? And for me and Apple, what one of the things that sold me is when I first bought our first Mac computer and we opened up the box, and it was an experience of glory. Going, I mean, and that has been true every time I've bought an iPhone or AirPods or an iPad or an i this or an i that. Their packaging, their delivery, their customer service, everything is just it reinforces the brand. No wonder they're $1 trillion company.
Yes.
So they are in a category of one, and that's kind of where we started this whole discussion. So let's
Hmm.
circle back to this because that has been a phrase that I have learned and used for years, coming out from Dan Kennedy's world of a category of one to separate the sea and say you're the one person. And as you would say, that's no longer enough to be a category of one. So unpack that for us.
Right. So it's a crowded space. It's everything is crowded. There's not a space that is not like, elbow to elbow. There really
Right?
isn't. And so when you think of, I'll use my world as an example, marketing. That's the if you look at the NASAC's codes, right, the government
Yeah.
codes, it's like
Yeah.
advertising services, marketing, right? And then you start to come down. So it's marketing, then branding, then business branding, personal branding. Niche it down even more because even inside of personal branding, every ghostwriter specializes in personal branding, right?
Right.
And so for me, it's positioning and messaging. So that's the niching down or picking a very specific lane in this category. It's not to say that I don't do personal branding.
Right.
It's just that I take your personal brand and your business brand. We are focused on this very specific area first, and that's my zone of genius.
Yes.
That's where I excel at, and that's really truly what differentiates me in the space and our business in the space.
Yeah. And you have to, as a business owner, an entrepreneur, you have to go down that level. And I think what scares people, and I'd love for you to talk about this, is well, if I go that niche, there's not enough business for me, and then I have to come back up. Do you
That's
hear
also
that?
fiction. Yeah, that's also fiction.
Thank you.
Because you know and you don't need to have a million offers, no,
Right.
right? You don't need to service everyone. You don't have to do everything because you can. We have lived that route of full service agency.
Yeah.
We've done that. That is, it's a route that one can take, but it's absolutely not required to earn a very, very, very good living. And if I'm talking about just somebody who's an expert service provider, let's say, is that while I show up out in the world as a brand business, personal brand strategist, I do
Right.
both of those things. I'm still talking about positioning and messaging. And why do I talk about that so much? And why do I focus on that? Because that is at the root of my potential clients' $1 million problem that they need to have solved. Because if their positioning isn't right, it could literally collapse their building. They will, or their business. They will not meet their revenue goals. They will not call in the right partners. There'll be nothing
Right.
in the market. So while there are other things that I could do and I could talk about, that's that area of expertise that people are willing to pay me very good money for. And then once we start having that conversation, then we can open up
Right.
the other services, the other things that will inform that engagement work. Should I want to? I don't
Right.
even have to.
Exactly. And that, well, and that's the beauty of it, because you come to the microphone today with a level of confidence and of skill. I get the sense that you're not chasing the next prospect, right? You've positioned yourself well. You have a great, clear message. I love it, and I'm going to slaughter it, but you help people create a brand that takes the two comma brand or something. What there was something I learned, and I went, "Oh, that's really good." You just frame it a little differently, but you basically say, "Here's who I am, and here's who I'm for."
Yes.
And let's make a marriage out of that. Fair?
That's very fair. That's very fair. And here's what I do, even most important because it's not what I do, because that's the process.
Right.
But here's the transformation. Here is the outcome. Because that's what people pay for. They
Yes.
don't pay for deep pocket pay for the benefit or the features
Right.
or any of those things that everyone and their monkey is doing. They they pay for this other thing over here, and zeroing in on that, and why your methodology, your unique lens, your perspective, and that's what I call your value DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That's your mechanism, that unique differentiating mechanism that gets your clients from point A to point B or point Z, that
Yeah.
ultimate apex. And that's really where start adding commas.
Yes. Yeah. And adding commas is really important in business. One of so yeah, and I think this is going to align really well. So this is I've got a lot of marketing philosophies, but one of my primary ones is people buy who you are more than what you do. And I think that's just another way of saying what you're talking about is when you position yourself properly, which is positioning is one of my favorite words. I read Trout and Reese years ago, major influence on my life. And then messaging, you put that together and you find yourself in a category of a category of one because all the competition's not doing this. They're not showing up with a compelling message, offer, delivery, transformation. They're just run of the mill branding people or book people or whatever it is. And you have a unique ability, Alana, to help craft and shape a brand that actually makes a difference and an impact in the world, right?
I
I
believe
think
that's what
so.
my work is doing.
Look at the humility, folks.
What if I
I
said
think that.
no? If I said no, well, that would throw people for a loop.
That's right. Yeah. And thanks for listening to this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Over.
That's right. But that it's a unique skill set that I mean, entrepreneurs just don't have it. I mean, the people you work with, the people I work with, they're amazing at what they do.
Yes.
They just don't have the lens when it comes to branding, messaging, marketing, all of that to
Right.
make that impact, that difference that people are really looking for.
No, they're not going to
Yeah.
because and it's no fault of their own. They just don't know what
Yeah.
they don't know. And
Right.
there's a reason why there are areas of expertise in this that you can get master's degrees, PhDs, entire industries and sectors of businesses that specialize in this work exist.
Yeah.
For one, and a lot of people feel that that's the thing that they can bootstrap. They will hire and pay for things that are so far down the line. And it blows my mind
Yeah.
where at the point of which of an evolution of a startup that oftentimes we're called in to a conversation. It's like, wow, we should have been here 3 years ago. What is
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
Because this is a hot mess.
Hmm.
And and that's just in part of not truly understanding brand's role and functionality. Because as a startup, let's say you're a founder and you're launching a SaaS company,
Yeah.
having complete clarity around the brand, who it is you're trying to call in. Because when you're a startup, you're not calling in the customer at that
Right.
stage. That is
Yeah.
not your ideal client. So messaging to investors, to those people that you're needing to call in, they have very different needs. They need to hear very different things. So it's more complex and it's more nuanced than most understand. And I try to unpack it, through my social content. I unpack it in small ways and try to put it in. It's the teacher in me. I can't help myself, is to show the connection
Yeah.
because you can't just water hose it at people. You know,
Right.
they can't take it all in. It's too much and it becomes incredibly incredibly overwhelming. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest disservices that if I see any solopreneurs doing, people that are leaving industry, whether that's through retirement or um, being let go or whatever that is, they kind of get in their own way in the sense of like, well, I'm just going to show up on LinkedIn. I'm going to start posting again, that copying what they see, the
Right.
activities that they see other people doing, but what they don't, successful people, but what they don't understand is there's all this other work that's been done. A
Yes.
lot of deep work, whether they've done it themselves for a number of years or paid an agency to collapse time for them. So I've seen so many people just squander so much money and leave so much money off the table because
Yeah.
they wanted to go figure it out for a year.
Yeah. Yeah. What a
Well,
waste.
you can do that, but I don't know why you wouldn't just spend
Yeah.
this investment because it is an investment. You're going to get
Oh,
a return on this.
yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. A multiples return because when you get the brand right, I mean, when was the last time Apple changed their brand? Well, let's see, right? Once you get it right, it's going to be enduring because, as you said earlier, it's that the value DNA. It's who we are as a company. That's probably not going to change. That's going to help inform all of your marketing, your hiring, your product delivery, your service, your SOPs, your everything comes out of that.
Mhm.
And that's why Alana needs to be at the front end of all that you're doing. So, okay.
Absolutely.
How do you work with individuals, brands? I mean, what's it look like to work with you? Is it a short term, long term? And give us a broad perspective. Go back to your art days. Give me a paintbrush and a
Yeah.
canvas and paint for me this picture of kind of what it might look like.
Yeah, so for business brands, it's a completely different trajectory
Hmm.
into my world versus a solopreneur or an
Hmm.
individual, let's say, that's positioning themselves, an executive out in the world. They're going to come through more of a traditional funnel that you might see, right?
Hmm.
So they're
Yeah,
they're coming in through content. They might take a small offer that then goes up to
sure.
larger offers. Sometimes they're going straight in of like, I want complete done for you service. They're
Yeah,
they're a more sophisticated buyer. So it can look like a number of things, but if you're working directly with me, that high touch proximity that happens through group containers, it happens through one-to-one, smaller intensive coaching containers, and then all the way up to complete done for you services where we're doing
hmm,
everything beginning to end and somebody else is doing the execution. One thing that we don't do with with brand of any kind is the execution. So if we're talking about the brand strategy and it needs to go out and live in the world, someone else is executing it, whether that
Right.
be the solopreneur or an internal team. We've opted not to take that on.
Yeah.
We've been asked by many a founder that we work with or an executive, will you do the ghostwriting? Will you do the write all the content, create all the visual assets? No, 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 no.
That's right.
Because that's a whole other agencies. There are agencies that that's all they do because it's that in-depth of
Yes.
work, a different process, different onboarding, different area of expertise, even though our work informs all of that,
Right.
you
Well,
know?
yeah, and no, and I love that answer because entrepreneurs don't understand that you can say no. And but what you've done, Alana, is you have just expressed what we talked about, a category of one of a category of one of a cat. You're in your lane and
Hmm.
you're going to stay in your lane, right? We're very similar. We have a lane that we've built over the last 13 years. We don't deviate. We used to. We used to
Yeah,
take things on and we got burned. Our client got burned. It's like, that just didn't work. And we don't even like that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So, no, I do this. I have a network of people I am happy to introduce you to. You can have those conversations. Um, the other thing I want to poke in there is sometimes clients would say, well, then I'll just go to the agency and let them do all the work. And the problem with that is the agency isn't Alana. It doesn't, the
Mm.
agency who's going to do the execution doesn't have the brain power, doesn't have the perspectives of Alana. So you're going to shoot yourself in the foot if you skip over Alana. So there is a process, there's a method to the madness of why
Yeah.
should they work with you with strategy first, right?
Well, because strategy informs everything. And and many agencies also do strategy work.
Yeah,
It's a part of the process. If they're worth their
yeah,
salt at all, they do that. They go through that process, and it doesn't mean that they're necessarily reestablishing the brand, but they could run it through a pressure test to make sure we're
sure,
on the same page. Is this holding up to the positioning that you stated? Because positioning is directly tied to your revenue goals. You're
yeah,
positioned in the market as a commodity, boutique, luxury, premium. Like, where do you sit in the market and who are you talking to? How you talk to, if you're luxury, how you are positioned in luxury, that all impacts the brand. So it's all very connected. So
yeah,
you have to go back to that point and ask all those questions and make sure, are we all on the same page? Are we all in agreement here? Because if someone says to me, well, we want to sell XYZ and we want to sell thousands of them at a rip, but we're going to charge $100,000 per, well,
right.
maybe not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's not really
It
you
doesn't work
can't
that
you
way.
can't treat that like a commodity because it won't call in the luxury consumer who wants something that nobody else has, not
Right,
one that's there's a million of out in the world. That's not
right,
how they identify. So understanding your customer's identity and all of that piece. So it does become difficult to execute a strategy and all of that piece hasn't been done first,
right.
regardless of who's done it. But oftentimes, what will happen is you could work with someone like myself, and then you go to an agency. They like to, like every every dog out there,
That's
they want
right.
to put their mark on it. So
Yeah,
they're going to scrutinize that, that
yeah,
piece of it too. So you'll see that happen from, from time to time that there's a risk, but mostly we're working with people that are when we're working with personal brands, executive personal brands, founder personal brands, they're bringing that in-house.
yes.
Less of it being handed off to a larger agency that wants to stick its nose in a strategy that's already been established.
Yeah. And going back to the revenue growth coming out of a brand, when
Yeah.
when you when you as a business owner, as that personal brand, when you have that personal brand that actually finally gets traction and you start to become known for something, that's when things really start to multiply. And getting to that point is a challenge. It really is. Unless you've
It
got somebody
is.
like, I mean, it's just hard. You can't. I've told people for years, you're not going to find your message by yourself. You need an outside set of eyes, at least one, to find that because well, the people I work with, they're just they can't connect the dots. Their brains aren't made like me and you because we're creative types. We can look at that and go, "Oh, I see the connection points between there. Oh, here it is," and everybody goes, "Oh, that's brilliant." It's like, no, it's just
Well, it's also hard to see to pluck out what is going to be. It's very easy to dismiss the things that we are very good at
yes,
as because they're so easy to us. We just assume that they have no value to others, but usually that's where the deepest value lies when we're talking about your external audience or customer.
yeah,
So, they do matter. They
they
absolutely
really do.
do matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So how do people who should reach out to you? What are they doing? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are they struggling with before they reach out to you? Then we'll get to say, okay, how do they make that happen? But what's going on inside of somebody? What stories are they telling themselves that are keeping them limited?
Sure. So I have a couple different personas. So I have the executives and those founders that are operating at a very high level. They're already
Mhm.
generating money. They're already at six, eight big, it's not six, seven, eight figures.
Yeah,
That's that sort of thing. And then I have those more solopreneurs who might be at six, but now they're looking to this
right,
scale, but they're floundering, or maybe they can't quite break that six figure, that
yeah,
six figure mark. So they have different they have different things going on. They're different
hmm,
personas, different, and that's why there's different offers. Messaging sometimes can overlap, but I'm usually very targeted and I go in campaigns when I'm talking to people. So
right,
so with a founder or an executive, it's usually about positioning them from a thought leadership perspective out in the world. They're trying to get the attention of people that are in rooms they want to be in, which is can be very much the same ultimate goal of, a
right,
solopreneur.
absolutely,
But these are usually on a global stage, they're on an international stage, they're at a much higher level. They're calling people in, they're asking for tens and hundreds and sometimes millions of dollars to be brought into their company
right,
and that sort of thing. Or they're jockeying for positions because they want to be CEO now of a multi-billion dollar operation. So
right.
how they are positioned out in the market and the things that they are talking about and calling forward, those are the things that we get to the bottom of when we're looking at those people. And then for solopreneurs, usually kind of the common thing is um I need more clients. It's typically revenue or struggling with the sales piece of it, which a lot of times will come back to messaging.
Yeah,
It may not be that offer. Sometimes it's an offer problem, but usually it's not necessarily an offer problem. It's that you haven't really picked a lane. You're trying to be everything to everyone to call in any amount of revenue. So then you resonate with no one. And especially if you're using social selling,
right.
because you're not in front of everyone in a linear way at all times, right? They're just getting bits and pieces of you. And if every time you show up, you're talking to somebody different,
Right.
one day you're talking about this, the next day you're talking about that, the next day you're talking about, it doesn't
It's
work.
confusing. It's confusing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about being a category one of a category one, right, is the clarity that you bring
Yes.
forth, right? And when people follow you on LinkedIn, if they get nothing else, they get clarity, right, of who you are
Yeah.
and what you're communicating. And when an entrepreneur or business owner has that going for them, that is like always step one,
Right.
clarifying that message, that position. This is who I am. This
Yeah.
is who I serve. It starts there, folks.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that some of the other bigger problems I'm having, especially in LinkedIn, not with myself, but with other people, and I'm seeing it, is everyone looks and sounds the same. And it sounds like they're offering up the exact same thing. So if you think of it from a potential client's perspective, it, you're at that point, then you're competing on price. You're not really serving up that $1 million problem, that unique
Right.
problem that only you can solve. And what is it about mechanism, your methodology, your whole delivery, your lens, your perspective, and all that uniqueness that makes you
Yes.
your value DNA that gets them those different results. And whether that is shortening time, saving money, saving energy, saving resources, and by million dollar, I don't necessarily, sometimes it's literally millions of dollars, but other times it just feels like that.
Yeah,
It just feels like a burden. So for somebody that's a mindset coach, for someone that could have a monetary impact on someone
absolutely.
because, if their mindset's not in the right place, but that mindset could be, I need to be able to show up to for my family different. So that million-dollar problem
Mm.
is that their household's miserable
Yeah.
because their mindset is off. So and we get, so it doesn't really matter to me what area of expertise the clients that I work with are in. The
Hmm.
fundamentals are absolutely the same. We're still going to get to the bottom of what is the million-dollar problem that you
Yeah.
solve.
Yeah. And that's going to change everything about your business, about your marketing, about the choices
Everything.
that you make. It's everything. And because it's a core issue, right?
Right.
If you look at a tree, you're dealing with root systems. And
Yep.
those root systems then can grow up and produce great fruit. But you have bad roots, you get terrible fruit. And
Yeah.
so, Alana, I love that you work on the root system. How can people find you, follow you, learn more about you, engage with you? What's the best places for people to take that next step?
Yes, there's so many really good places. LinkedIn is an obvious one, especially if you're in business and you're there every day. I'm on LinkedIn, Alana Sparrow. I'm on Instagram, where I share a little bit more personal insight and perspective, and at just Alana Sparrow, and then alanasparrow.com. My business website is thefoundrysite.com, and those are the best places to find me. I'm there every day,
Awesome. I
Monday
love
through
it.
Friday.
Well, and I think that's great. So you heard consistency over time because if you don't know it's Alana Sparrow by now, you're not listening because she just said it about 4 times, which kudos, right? And then Monday through Friday, consistency and
Yes.
providing great information, educating, and doing it in a fun, genuine way. So Alana, thank you. Thank you for what you do, for the energy you bring to it, for the expertise, and for really making an impact in people's lives, not just in business and making money, yippee skippy, but it's really making an impact in the lives so that their lives, their family are better off because
Oh,
they've
thank you
spent some
for
time with
saying
you.
that.
Well, you're
Because
welcome.
if I could end on this note, is that I- to me, the work that I do with personal brands in particular is so powerful to me because I see personal brands as being something that has the true ability to change the world, or at least have a very deep impact on it because they are so deeply tied to our livelihoods and to the things that are most important to them. We we can leverage them to grow our businesses, advance our careers, give voice to the causes that are important to us. And when you have that level of understanding of where it is you want to go, what it is you want to do, and who it is you want to serve,
Yeah.
you are going to have a tremendous impact that is only going to ripple out. And that's why I love the work that I do.
Yeah. I love it. So well spoken.
Mm.
I'm going to grab the links and things. I'm going to have those in
Okay.
the show notes so that my audience can connect with you, follow you, and learn from you. So, Alana, thank you again. Thanks for being my
Oh,
guest today. It's been a
thank you,
blessing to
Michael.
me. You are so welcome. Thanks for listening to Expert Speak. Tune in again next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.